Professor Zaghloul,
Yes.
the rifted earth. What does that mean?
I begin by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator, the creator of the universe and of everything that's in it, and seeking his praise and blessings to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the seal of that long chain of messengers and prophets. And we greet you and your audience in our Islamic way. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace, blessings and mercy be with you all. We are still in Surah Al-Tariq, and this short surah with only 17 verses is full of scientific facts. And one of these scientific facts is this oath by the earth that has its own rupture, its own fault, its own rift system. What do we mean by the rifted earth? When the Arabs listened to this verse at the time of the revelation of the glorious Quran, they said the only rifting we see is the cracking of the soil.
The cracking of the soil?
Cracking of the soil. When you water the soil of the earth with the proper quantity of water, Allah has given the soil the capacity to absorb water. And as it absorbs the water, it bulges upwardly until it thins greatly and then cracks. And this crack is essential for making this soil capable of plantation, because the very weak shoot that's coming out from a seeding, germinating seed is very weak. If you touch it with a grain of sand, you can break it. And unless it finds a free way, a free passageway through which it can rise and come up to the surface of the ground, so that the green leaves can function to produce its own food, it cannot grow.
So Allah has prepared the way for this very weak
plant. Yes.
But I'm wondering, Doctor, just sorry for the interruption. I'm wondering why we're not using the word in translating the ayah. Why we're not using the word crack instead of a rift system or instead of a fault? Why? What's the difference?
You see, a crack is a crack.
Yes.
Is an opening that does not entail any movement.
I see.
But a sada, which is a fault or a rift, is a crack accompanied by movement, whether lateral movement, upward or downward movement. And that's why the word as-sada is usually translated by fault, and if it contains down warping of the ground, falling down of the ground, is called a rift. So if you find two faults parallel to each other, having their down throw towards each other, it will create a rift.
Okay.
And that's why the Quran uses very, very precise terminology. And that's why he used here a sada. And sada means a crack that is accompanied by movement. And when we analyze this process of bulging of the soil, and this actually has been photographed by slow motion, and it shows, as the Quran says, فَإِذَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهَا الْمَاءَ اهْتَزَّتْ وَرَبَتْ. When water falls on the soil, it will shake and bulge upwardly, you see. Why does it shake? Because the clay minerals of the soil are flaky. And being flaky, they contain some air within each flake and the other. And that's why once you water it, this air is pushed upwardly. And that's why it bulges upwardly. Secondly, the water molecule is a dipolar molecule, a molecule carrying a positive charge on the two hydrogen atoms and a negative charge on the oxygen atom. And the flakes of the clay minerals also carry charges on them. And the interaction between the different charges can create this bulge, can enhance this bulging upwardly. So actually you find the earth booming upwardly, like this, you see, until it cracks. Without this cracking, so there is a movement, you see, and that's why the Quran uses as-sada. Yeah. So they called the meaning of the verse means the capacity of the soil to crack on watering, so that it can provide a free passageway for the gentle shoot coming out from a germinating seed. And without this character, no plantation could have ever taken place on the surface of our planet. And imagine, without plants, life would have been impossible on the surface of the planet.
Why didn't they understand it as the cause of an earthquake?
Because, you see, this was the first thing they could see. They see plantation every day, and they see the soil cracking every day. Even when an area is watered and then dried, it also cracks. In hexagonal patterns, you see, it cracks. So they said, as-sad'a is the cracking of the soil. What's the benefit of the cracking of the soil? If the soil cracks on watering, it gives a free passageway for the germinating seed to come, or the shoot of the germinating seed to come to the surface of the ground.
That's the movement you were talking about.
It's a movement.
That's the movement
yes.
of the water
Yes,
underneath.
indeed.
Right.
If it dries, if you water it and it dries up, it also cracks to allow oxygen to penetrate, to enrich the soil.
The airing of the soil.
Nitrogen, the airing of the soil. Nitrogen to penetrate, to enrich the soil. So that's how they understood it. And again, I repeat what I said in the last episode, that one of the most beautiful aspects of the glorious Quran is that the verse comes in few words. Every generation can see in these words a meaning. And these meanings keep on expanding all the time, keep unfolding all the time, so that the Quran would be encompassing human knowledge and always above it. Today we understand another meaning in this oath. وَالْأَرْضَ ذَاتِ الصَّدْعِ.
An integrated meaning.
Integrated
also, along
meaning.
with
yes.
the past one.
Goes out of this.
Yes.
Nowadays we find that the outer rocky layer of the earth is actually rifted by a group of faults. And these faults go in all directions, but they are interconnected, as if they are a single fault, a single crack, along which movement has taken place. And earth scientists believe today that without these cracks, that range in depth between 65 kilometers and 150 kilometers, without these deep rifts, the earth could have exploded immediately after the consolidation of its outer rocky layer, because the earth contains a huge quantity of radioactive material. And these radioactive materials, Allah has given it the capacity to decay spontaneously, a spontaneous decay. Uranium changes into lead, thorium changes into lead. And as it decays, it emits energy, it emits heat. And this heat can actually cause the earth to explode as a huge atomic bomb on the moment of its creation, once the outer rocky layer has been solidified. So these cracks
are like bypasses or like outlets.
Safety valves.
Safety valves.
They are safety valves for the earth, actually. And of course, these deep faults or deep rift systems have been discovered very late in the history of the earth, or the history of geology, earth sciences, because we could see small rifts on the surface of the solid earth, of the continental mass. But these deep rifts are mainly located at the bottoms of oceans and seas.
So that's beneath us.
I beg pardon?
Beneath us.
Beneath the sea.
So there are big cracks and openings beneath this surface that we're seeing?
Yes. Beneath the sea.
So there is movement always under us?
Always.
How come we're not?
Well, by the grace of Allah, you don't feel it. You know that the earth is subjected annually for more than 1 million earthquakes. And by the grace of Allah, we don't feel most of it. They are recorded by the seismographs. But we don't feel it. But 1 million earthquake. So the earth is moving all the time. And actually the magma is boiling under us, you see. Under the oceans, under the green fields, under the high-rising buildings. There is magma boiling all the time, you see. So unless we have these safety valves for the earth, life would have been impossible. The earth could have never remained in existence.
These safety valves are caused by earthquakes?
No. These safety valves are created by the Creator, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, we can understand how they form, but we don't understand the order for it to be formed. Yes. We know that, you see, the magma under the solid rock is moving all the time, is boiling. And there are convection currents below the rock, the outer rocky layer. And these convection currents can crack, can cause the faults to develop. And then can move them away from each other. Yeah. Can cause them to move away because they become rolling like this, you see. Yes. Convection currents that can push, actually, the cracked blocks of the outer rocky layer of the earth either away from each other or towards each other.
But these movements, how far below they occur?
This movement occurs on the surface of the earth, but the convection currents are below the outer rocky layer of the earth, below about 100 kilometers on continental masses, and probably 65 kilometers under the sea.
And that is continuously happening?
Continuously happening.
And these safety valves, doctors, this is the safety valves.
Yes.
These are the volcanoes or...
No, the safety valves are the openings itself.
The openings of the volcanoes.
Are the cracks, themselves,
okay,
you see.
I see.
Because they allow the heat to come out without shaking the earth.
I see.
You see, if they were closed completely, it would create lots of earthquakes, lots of destructions.
But the volcanoes are something else.
Volcanoes come along these vents,
exactly.
But they are a different thing than the movement of the earth itself.
So all of the things that we fear, volcanoes and earthquakes and these cracks, they are all to our benefit, actually.
Definitely, definitely.
So inshallah, we'll go for a short break now, and we'll continue after the break. Thank you. Welcome back, dear viewers. Welcome back, Professor. And before the break, you were saying that these outlets, these cracks in the rifted earth, are of most benefit.
Yes. You see, we are still talking about this Quranic verse, which reads, by the earth that has its own rift system or its own fault. And I mentioned that in the late 1960s, when scientists went down to study the bottoms of seas and oceans, because most of these oceans, actually, we can see oceanic currents pushing on the shorelines, manganese nodules, iron nodules. So scientists came to believe that the bottoms of oceans are enriched with lots of mineral wealth. So they went down to study these bottoms of seas and oceans, and for their surprise, they found that all oceans on the surface of our planet are actually formed by faults, by deep rift systems. And these faults are, on the average, 65 kilometers deep. And, of course, as the magma is rolling below the outer rocky layer of the earth, it pushes the oceanic bottom away from each other in a process or in a phenomenon called seafloor spreading. So the seafloor is spreading all the time, allowing a safety valve for the product of decay of radioactive materials, this immense heat, to be released actually in a safe manner. And
safe because it is absorbed by the water.
Because it has a free passageway.
Yes, and also absorbed by the water of the oceans?
No, for the water it's something else, you see. Because in the sea, in the ocean, we find a gradual drop of temperature as you go down, which is opposite to land. On land you find a gradual increase of temperature as if you go down, at the rate of 1 degree centigrade every 30 meters. But in the sea, you find a gradual drop of temperature. And actually this emanated heat helps animals and plants to live at the bottom. Otherwise, the water would freeze at the bottom. So there is a steady source of energy that actually makes life possible. And that's why around these fault plains, life flourishes. Really, around these fault plains, because there is always warmth coming up. But these faults run for tens of thousands of kilometers. They envelop the earth in a manner similar to the seam on a tennis ball. They all go in all directions, but they are interconnected. And they simulate them to the seam on a tennis ball. And strangely enough, you see, the Quran saying الصدع in the singular form. وَالْأَرْضِ ذَاتِ الصَّدْعِ. Being so well interconnected, they are as if they are one single fault.
As if one string, one contour line,
Yes.
only going around, enveloping all the earth.
Yes, they are interconnected. These fault lines are all interconnected. And this is for a great many values for life on the surface of our planet. And as I said, enough to mention that if this heat is not emanated from within the earth, life at the bottoms of seas and oceans would have been impossible. Secondly, if these faults were not there, the earth could have exploded. Thirdly, you see, this is a process of enriching the earth all the time with minerals and chemical compounds, and that are absolutely valuable and absolutely useful for life.
But you mentioned the word seabed spreading?
Sea floor spreading.
Sea floor spreading.
Yes.
But this is pushing away the land. Isn't
Yes.
that so?
Yes.
So that means all the land was one before?
Oh, definitely. All the land was one unity.
So we were joined to America, stuff like that?
Yes, yes. All the continents were originally one mass.
One land mass.
Yes, one supercontinent, which they call Pangaea, or the mother of continents, or the mother continent. And then through these rifts, it was broken into these 7 continents, and they started to drift away from each other.
So we're still drifting?
They're still going on, yes.
So we are moving far away?
Moving either far away from each other
So
or
the
towards
plane
each
trip's
other.
going to get longer.
So that means, Professor, that the oceans are increasing in size?
There is a reverse process.
Okay.
Some oceans are increasing in size. We call them opening oceans. And some oceans are closing down, so that the earth
Because
would
the
remain...
earth is a fixed mass, so if it goes from here, it will...
yes, shrink from the other side, yes.
On what rate is the increase, the rate of increase?
Oh, of course, in the past it was much quicker than today. Today, for example, we observe that Bab al-Mandab, the mouth of the Red Sea, is expanding at the rate of 1 to 3 centimeters per year.
Okay.
The Atlantic Ocean is widening at the rate of 6 to 9 centimeters per year. The other oceans, you see, the Pacific Ocean is closing down in many areas. So the Red Sea is expanding. The Mediterranean is closing. So everything
this rate
is
is dangerous,
I beg
Professor?
your pardon?
This rate is dangerous? The expansion at this rate, is it considered to
No,
be
no,
important
but
at all?
probably it was much faster in the past.
Okay.
Before life was created, before man was created, it was much faster. And we have geological records that can testify to that, that the movement, we call these plates of the outer rocky layer of the earth, or lithospheric plates. Lithos in Latin means rock, and sphere means sphere, globe. Lithospheric plates, plates of the outer rocky layer of the earth. So these plates are moving all the time. And by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't feel that movement.
Right.
And actually, as we shall discuss in a coming episode, inshallah, the movement is minimized by the creation of mountains and mountains chains. So mountains can minimize that movement so that it can make life on the continental masses possible.
Back to the crack, doctor, now.
But raise your voice a little bit.
Back to the crack now.
Yes.
The crack that, the soda,
Yes.
the word soda. Now, we were talking about that they have like a form of, or sort of safety valves, correct?
Yes.
These things are spilling out, these valves are spilling out something. What are these things?
Magma.
Magma.
They are spilling molten rock.
I mean, these are huge magmas?
Definitely, in millions of tons.
Right.
How could the seafloor spread?
Oh.
Unless you are pushing something in between.
So it can form an island, for instance?
It can form an island, definitely.
Yes. Do we have any life example right now? For
All
these
the
islands?
volcanic islands of
Right.
today,
Like what, doctor?
such as the Hawaiian Islands,
Okay.
the Japanese islands, the Philippine islands, the Indonesian islands, all these are volcanic islands.
So they came out of the crack?
Came out of these volcanic eruptions.
Wow.
And the
SubhanAllah.
volcanicity under the sea is much, much greater than volcanicity on land. And that's why it can create this phenomenon of seafloor spreading. And
because it is weaker, the surface of the earth is weaker under the sea?
no, it's not weaker, it's thinner. Thinner but denser. You see, the outer rocky layer of the earth on land is in the range of 100, 120 kilometers. At the bottom of the sea is within the range of 60 to 65 kilometers. The outer crust of the earth on continental masses is a range of 35 to 40 kilometers. And the outer crust at the bottom of the ocean is 5 to 8 kilometers. But the 8 kilometers are equal in weight to the 35 to 40 kilometers because the material of the bottom of the oceans are denser.
Yes.
And this is again one of the greatest wisdom of the Creator.
This reminds us about the phenomenon of the tsunami. Does this have something to do with it?
No, tsunami is a Japanese term that means violent oceanic currents created by an earthquake at the bottom of the sea or the ocean. Because once you shake the earth at the bottom of the sea, it moves water.
Right.
And water, the soft, gentle, tender liquid that, of course, all forms of life depend on. If it moves, it can be sharper than a sword edge. It can be very destructive. And yes?
Yeah. I just, back to the crack again.
You should sit nearer to me so that I can hear you.
All right.
But before we continue, because we want to
Right,
finish
go
this
ahead.
point.
Sorry.
So the tsunami is not the cause of the rift.
No. Tsunami is the cause of earthquakes.
Earthquakes.
And earthquakes can be produced by the rifts.
Okay.
You see, but it's not directly connected with the rifting system.
Okay.
The rifting system can create earthquakes because it allows the outer rocky layer of the earth to move.
Yeah.
So it can create earthquakes. The tsunami is produced by the movement of the water. You see, huge waves of water. You know, in tsunami, you can find these oceanic waves running at a speed greater than the speed of an aeroplane.
Wow.
800 to 1,000 kilometers per hour. And they can rise to up to 40 meters. And of course, they can be one wave following the other very swiftly, very, very, very quickly.
And very destructive.
So they can be very destructive. Can be very destructive. Yes.
Back to your
Just
question.
about, I have read a hadith, a speech of the Prophet ﷺ, regarding the fire under the water. Can you just?
We will come to that in the coming episode,
Right.
inshallah.
Okay, inshallah.
Because as you crack the bottom of the ocean, and the force that cause that crack are deep enough to penetrate all the outer rocky layer, you will reach a zone which is known as the zone of weakness, or the asthenosphere. Actually, asthenos in Latin means ill, sick, or weak. It's a zone of weakness because the rocks in that zone are found in a semi-molten state. And as this semi-molten material gushes out along the opened crack or the open fault, of course it can create seas to be physically set on fire. Yes. And inshallah we'll discuss that in the coming episode.
Inshallah. So, Professor, just to make one point clear.
Yes.
The outlets produce magma, because I had the impression that they let out gases.
Because magma is associated with gases, with water vapor, with all sorts of things.
But they let out solid, and mainly solid phase
the semi-molten material.
Yeah.
And of course gases will come out as gases. You see.
Yeah. Okay. But not only gases.
Not only gas, of course.
Not only gas.
Even if you see a volcanic eruption, you'll see the magma coming out from the volcanic vent, and the gas is rising up to the sky. But the magma comes down and forms the cone of the volcano. And it can increase the dimension of that cone steadily all the time. The more it erupts, the more it can increase the volcanic cone.
And the lava is the magma also?
The lava is the magma as it is exposed on the surface. As it is remains under the surface, it's called magma. And the lava, once it comes out to the surface, it is chilled. It cools suddenly. And that's why it changes into glassy material. It does not have the chance to crystallize. So the lava, as it comes out, is magma that is chilled, cooled suddenly, and that's why it does not have the chance to crystallize or can produce very minute crystals, but it's mainly composed of glass or glassy material.
But how long does it take to cool down? Because it's very destructive. Like if it's in an island, it could cause people to get killed and it could burn houses.
It depends. You see, depends on, first of all, the chemical composition of the magma. If it contains many minerals that consolidate at a lower temperature, it will consolidate immediately. If it contains many minerals that need a longer time to consolidate, it will take a longer time.
So the composition is not always constant, the composition of the
No,
magma?
the composition is not constant. It's variable, highly variable. Depends on the amount of gases in the magma. It depends on the amount of liquids in the magma. So it depends on many factors.
So I think you had a question?
Yes.
But we're coming to the end of the episode, so make it
why is the movement of the moving away of the continents slowing down?
Slowing down because of mountains.
Okay.
You see, every mountain has got a downward extension, which is known as the mountain root. This downward extension is 10 to 15 times the elevation of the mountain on the surface of the ground. And by these roots, a mountain can fix a continent in the ocean bottom, or fix a continent in another continent if the ocean bottom is consumed. And that's why mountain chains play a very important role in the fixation of the earth.
We'll make a special episode for mountains,
Inshallah,
right?
inshallah.
So sadly, we've come to the end of our episode of today. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Zalul Najjar, Brother Mustafa, Brother Fuad. Thank you, dear viewers. Until next episode, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.